like you don't hear much about them, and like what you do hear about them is involved in a lot of these programs. I mean, it's I mean, he was a rocket scientist. Think about this, okay? And everybody now they're used to that shit, but like he was a rocket scientist when being a rocket scientist wasn't freaking smart. People
Wasn't
frick
even thought of. Wasn't even
yeah.
a consideration, right?
He was that crazy guy out in the field that was freaking setting off freaking fireworks and shit. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But I mean that's the time set that we're thinking of there. You know, people weren't going to the moon yet. People weren't freaking going up to the satellite or space stations and stuff. You know, so that's that. That's the thing, man. Um, I think a lot of that actually is most likely where the start of this was in JPL. I mean, that's that's a serious freaking corporation, and you're talking about people disappearing. All right, people disappear. Trust me, and there's a good chance JBL has something to do with it. There's also the donut in England. I don't know if you guys heard of the donut.
Yeah, I just recently heard of it, but I'm not fluid in it.
You heard of the donut, Dave?
Just, I was about to say,
No.
they talk about it with the crown.
Uh, the donut is basically a building shaped like a donut in London, and they have since I don't know when it started, but at least in the 70s or 80s, they've been listening in on every conversation that people in England have had on the telephones. It moved from the telephones to the internet. And now they're freaking spying on people on the computers and stuff. But it's called the donut.
Okay. I know that that's done here. There's one right down the street from where I'm at right now. Do you remember the old telephone buildings? You had to have all the wire frames. I know what the frames look like. We actually had some for Davis when I was at the Space Center. But you had these huge relay centers with all the wires going everywhere to switch telephone conversations. You had to have your switch buildings. Well, we don't need that anymore. We Even if you've got two landlines, when one calls the other, it gets converted to digital somewhere, and it's all done over network switches and the internet and what have you, even if you think you're using a landline. We have all these telecom buildings all over the United States that are still standing. They're still secure. You still see vehicles at them all the time. Most of them really don't have any windows. That's where the spooks hang out. Those things are full of FBI. They're still owned by AT&T. They're still owned by whoever. But instead of running a bunch of network phone switching equipment that we don't need anymore, that's where we're monitored from. These old phone buildings that are theoretically next to useless now are just full of spooks.
Yep.
And you drive by one, you see a normal looking guy go in, chances are he's at NSA.
Now, the donut is the nickname given due to its resemblance to a donut to the headquarters of the Government Communication Headquarters, a British cryptography and intelligence agency. It is located on a 71 hectares, 176 acres site in Ben Hill in the suburbs of Cheltenham, Gloucestershire. Gloucestershire in southwest England. So that's where it is. And I brought up the picture too, and I made a
Yeah, I think I have seen this before now that I'm looking at it.
Yeah. Oh, you want me to pop it back up?
No, I'm looking at it right now.
Okay.
No, I think I have seen pictures of this building before, but I just kind of kept going. I thought it was a sports stadium because I've
Yeah.
seen it in passing.
So
Now that I look at it, it's obviously not a sports stadium.
that's why I tell English people they need to just shut their mouth, because like they freaking make it out like we're the freaking ones spying on everybody's intelligence or on their conversations, and like they're the ones who started it. You know what I'm saying? Like
Oh
uh,
yeah.
Queen Elizabeth, or not Queen Elizabeth, but what's her name? The one that was during Ronald Reagan's era. She didn't want to
Oh,
get
that
on.
was Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah, Queen Elizabeth didn't want to get on board with oh, Margaret Thatcher too. Neither one of them wanted to get on board with Ronald Reagan on the space program, the Star Wars program,
Right.
because the United States, didn't want to freaking get involved with their freaking intelligence program, which consisted of that facility. All right. So Ronald Reagan had to freaking actually negotiate with them so that they could get on board and they could work together, which meant that the freaking Star Wars program was like completely downsized. You know what I'm saying? Like what he wanted to do and what was actually done didn't match up, and
Right.
it was because of that bullshit. So that's another thing that's a pretty good thing to talk about.
I remember Star Wars being talked about extensively when I was a kid, but it wasn't until I was older that I actually figured out what the hell they were really talking about.
Yeah.
You know, you hear all the news when you're a kid and you don't really know what's going on. But
Yeah. I know it was a
well,
lot worse back then though. Like now they don't even talk about it. I remember when I was a kid, I was always wondering why freaking all that bombing was going on in freaking Israel and over there, and it was always on the news. You know what I mean? Now, like they're barely even talking about it. Like it's not going on.
the more you learn about what's really going on, the more you just kind of pull back and don't know what to think of this earth anymore.
Yeah. Have you guys ever heard of the Minamata disease?
The never, no.
Minamata.
No, I can't say that I have.
Negative.
Okay, now I'll pull up the Wikipedia for you. That way you guys can see it. But Minamata is basically caused because of mercury. Here, let me go ahead and read it to you, and I can post the Minamata up for you. Windows, no. Yeah, here we go. You guys see that? Okay.
Keep forgetting I'm muted.
Mine's
Yeah,
is-
I see it.
Mine's is black. I don't see anything. Hold on.
Well, I can,
Oh,
there you
wow.
go, I see.
I think I know somebody that has this disease.
I can read it.
He
to you.
didn't call it that though. He called it something else. Can't remember what he called it.
No, I can read it and everything. So,
Yeah.
if you want, okay.
Wait.
Minamata disease is a neurological disease caused by severe mercury poisoning. Signs and symptoms include ataxia, numbness in the hands and feet, general muscle weakness, loss of peripheral vision, and damage to hearing and speech. And in extreme cases, insanity, paralysis, coma, and death follow with weeks of the onset of symptoms. A congenital form of the disease affects fetuses in the womb, causing microphthalmia, extensive cerebral damage, and symptoms similar to those seen in cerebral palsy. Minamata disease was first discovered in the city of Minamata, Kumamoto Prefecture, Japan, in 1956, hence its name. It was caused by the release of methyl mercury in the industrial wastewater from a chemical factory owned by the Chizo Corporation, which continued from 1932 to 1968. It was also been suggested that some of the mercury sulfate in the wastewater was also metabolized to methyl mercury by bacteria in the sediment. This highly toxic chemical bioaccumulated and biomagnified in shellfish and fish in Minamata Bay and the Shiranui Sea, which when eaten by the local population resulted in mercury poisoning. The poisoning and resulting deaths of both humans and animals continued for 36 years, while Chizo and the Kumamoto prefectural government did little to prevent the epidemic. The animals' effects were severe enough in cats that they came to be named as having dancing cat fever. As of March 2001, 2,265 victims have been officially recognized as having Minamata disease, and over 10,000 have received financial compensation from Chizo. By 2004, Chizo had paid $86 million in compensation, and in the same year was ordered to clean up its contamination. On March 29, 2010, a settlement was reached to compensate as yet uncertified victims. And there's a second break, but I just wanted to kind of go through that and let you guys hear about it and see what your thoughts are on that. You guys there still?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking on mute. But I just find it interesting because remember we were talking about with Tesla and then he had that disease from the water as well. It was coming from contamination of like the water, and it was for a certain type of.
It was a cholera.
Cholera, yes, cholera. I don't have my notes pulled up, so I just didn't want to say the wrong name of the actual disease. But it's crazy to me because it has the same, well, not the same, but similar parallel symptoms.